In this video, we're going to be talking about a little mystery tool called Break Apart. And it's this little gray button next to Add Aperture called Break Apart. And it has some really unique capabilities for us when we're doing our album layouts. So let's show you just a couple of the basics. So let's go ahead and create an image opening. Make a selection, choose Add Aperture, and then I want to subtract from this selection. So I'm just going to make a selection and hit Delete, and just cut a piece of that image opening out. Now what I want to do is I want to take these two red boxes and make each one on its own separate image layer. If you look over here, you can see that we just have one image box layer. So if I click on this little gray button next to Add Aperture, it's Break Apart. It'll actually take those two boxes and put those on each on their own separate layer, and also create a vector layer mask in the process. So that's essentially what Break Apart will do. Now, I am actually going to take those two and click on Merge and merge those two back together as one. But notice that I now have a vector layer mask. When I initially created it, I had a bitmap layer mask. You say, well, what's the significance of that? Well, let me show you. I'm actually going to duplicate this layer, something like so, and then I'm going to actually free transform and flip it vertically. So I have a completely different configuration, and I'm going to click those two and hit merge again. Okay, so now I have a kind of this interesting little collage going on here. So now what I'm going to do, because I have a vector layer mask, I'm going to choose Edit, Define Custom Shape. So now anytime I want to create that configuration, I can come in here and use my custom shape tool, and I could drag it out. Where the Break Apart tool comes into play is, what if I want these four red squares, each one on its own individual layer? This is where Break Apart comes into play. When I hit Break Apart, I click on this button, and it will break apart this shape layer into its own individual layers. So now each one of these is now its own separate layer, which I can then insert an image into. So you can see how incredibly useful that Break Apart tool can be. It's quite useful. So in addition to working on a bitmap layer, we can also delete or break apart a text layer. So if I come in here to my horizontal type tool and I type in the word senior, for example. Okay, this is just a text layer. And if I choose Break Apart, then every letter is broken apart from the rest of it. You see that? Now every letter is its own. And that can also be quite useful as well. So that is how the Break Apart tool works, and it works on just about any layer. So in other words, I'm just going to create a new layer here in Photoshop. I am going to make an elliptical selection. I'm going to fill it with my foreground color, and then I'm going to simply come in here and make a rectangular selection, and I'm going to delete a little piece off the top and move it down here and delete a little piece off the bottom. Okay, now I want each one of these shapes to be on its own separate layer, and if I choose that Break Apart option, it'll do just that. And again, depending on the certain circumstances, that can actually be quite useful when we're doing our different album layouts, or any type of a photo layout whatsoever. So now each one of these, it's its own separate layer, and I can create something truly unique that wouldn't otherwise be very easy to create using the standard tools here in Pixel Creator Pro and in Photoshop. So experiment with that Break Apart tool. Watch the video a couple of times, and I think you'll find lots of uses for that Break Apart tool as you get more sophisticated with your album designs.